let's start with some introductions. Yeah. So, my name's Paul. How you doing?
Yep. Good.
What's your name?
My name's Ian Briggs.
Nice to meet you, Ian Briggs. We've never met before.
No.
This is where I live. So, Ian, what is your story? Why are you here today, and what do you want to talk about?
We're here to talk primarily about CMS and the effect it has on people's lives. In July 2020, my son Gavin Briggs, 40-year-old father to 3 children, took his own life, committed suicide. Yeah. People don't like the word suicide because it's related to a crime. And actually, I specifically use the word suicide because what happened to Gavin is a crime, was a crime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I went up to see him on the weekend before he took his life, and we had a great weekend. We were talking about, he had some issues with work, which we were discussing.
Yeah.
But he didn't say anything to me about the issues he was having with the CMS. I didn't know anything about it because I knew he was working with the CMS, obviously, with 3 kids, 2 divorces. Well, and on the Wednesday evening, he disappeared. And driving home from work, we figured out afterwards he stopped at a Tesco's, 10 minutes from his home, bought a drink, sandwich, disposable barbecue, and then drove 120 miles into Hampshire, into a desert field entrance, and that night took his own life. The police searched frantically for him for a couple of days. It was Friday night and finally found his body. And at that point, my life fell apart. Because we took, I went up to his chance and couldn't figure out why he did it. But it was just beyond us. And on the Saturday, that day, there was a letter from the CMS delivered to Gavin. Yeah. Which we opened. And in that letter, it was basically, it took me a while to get my head around all the figures. But they stated that he owes the CMS, and the CMS were chasing him for money. There'd been a financial investigation carried out on him. He was a trained mechanic, earning 54 grand a year, dependent on overtime, etc., etc. But the CMS had assessed him, and they'd actually got his works figure. It's 50, I think it's 52 grand on that particular letter. Yeah. But then they added £26,000 additional income.
Why do they do that then?
Well, I still have no idea where it's come from. I've got an inclination of what they did, but I can't prove it yet. I'm still working on getting there.
Is that something that you could discuss here?
Yeah, I mean, he was a sole trader limited company, basically. With all sole traders, limited companies, they pay themselves a wage, and then they pay themselves a dividend. It's a tax dodge. Everybody does it from the Prime Minister down. That. So he paid himself probably 22, 23 grand annual wage, and then took the rest of it as a dividend, which would have been the £26,000. So what I believe the CMS did is add that twice to his income. Wow. They also had a figure on there of £15,900 arrears, which I couldn't get my head around at the time. And the other issue that I couldn't figure out quite what was going on was Gavin 2 previous marriages, one son from the first and then 2 from the second. So the first son he was paying for through the CMS, and he'd only been paying that for about 3 years because Gavin was brought the boy up from the age of 3 to the age of 13.
But he had full custody at the child then?
Not at that point. He had in the past, 3 years before he took his own life. the child decided he wanted to go and live with a mother. So Gavin had been paying through CMS for that child, and had been making the payments. So I couldn't see how.
So everything seems to be working
in place. The other two children, Gavin wasn't a saint. When he split up with his second wife, she used allegations of domestic violence, right, to restrict Gavin's access to his children to 1 hour in a visitation centre, which Gavin took advice on, and the solicitor said, "You're wasting your time, because all they'll do is use it against you in the future. Anything that you say or do within that centre is recorded, and it'll just be used against you. Your best option is just to walk away and do it," which is why you did, yeah. So for the first few months, I know he wasn't paying the CMX he should have been paying. He wasn't paying the child maintenance, that he should have been paying, right? They went to court. They ended up going to court, and it was all sorted, done and dusted in court. And the judge took into account the fact that Gavin hadn't been upfront with his child maintenance up to that point.
So he was in arrears at that.
He was, yeah. He hadn't been paying as much as he should have been. But the judge took that into account and set his child maintenance for those two children at £269 a week, which took into account the arrears that Gavin should have been paying. So effectively, he was now paying over the odds for those two children until either of them went back to court. So that £269 figure is set by the court order. And unless either of them went back to court to try and get it changed, that's what he would have been paying until they were.
And what would happen if he missed the payment then?
It's court order, so the court can come after him effectively.
Man, so there's a lot of pressure by it.
Yeah, but he was paying it. Once it all the dust settled, he had his court order in place. He was paying that court order. When he passed away, we managed to get all his documents that he had left.
No.
So I found 2 more letters from the CMS, one dated a year before Gavin took his life, one 6 months later, and one that came through. All 3 letters had similar figures. It's £26,000 additional income, £16,000 arrears.
16.
And the other thing, the CMS were trying to take money for the 2 children that Gavin was already paying for by court order. Now, at that time, I couldn't understand what was going on. Yeah. The impression I got was that the CMS were trying to take money over and above the court order.
Why?
Again, I've got no answers on that, and that's why I've been struggling. That's my fight. That's been my fight for the last 3 years. So I sat down, worked all the figures out, and I'd obviously discussed with Gavin. We talked about court order and all that sort of stuff, and we knew that was, there's no way you can break that. That's a court order. The only way it can be changed is by the judge.
Yeah.
Or so I believed at the time. So it looked like the CMS, with the CMS payments and with the court order,
yeah,
Gavin would have had to find £2,669 a month in child maintenance. Yeah.
And how much did that then?
That's £154 per month. And he's talking, no, he didn't have a mortgage. No, he was split in with his fiancée at the time. So he had no mortgage. But 153, wouldn't even pay for his money to get back and forth to work. So it took us a while to sit down and go through all the figures, figure it all out. We went through all his bank statements, and going through his bank statements, I can prove that, yeah, he might have been late with payments, but he made all payments, and payments were always made. It's all there in the bank statements.
Yeah. So he was just doing his best, basically.
Ironically, prior to Gavin taking his life, he'd obviously had dealings with CMS with the eldest son.
Yeah.
They started off with Gavin was he'd gone onto the CMS calculator, work how much he should have been paying, and he was paying his ex-wife for the oldest son. Yeah. What the CMS basically said he should be paying. She decided to go to the CMS because she thought she would get more, right? Ironically, the CMS lowered the payments. Now, Gavin actually phoned the CMS, argued with the CMS, telling them that he wasn't paying enough. And I've got a text message from around when he was doing it, so I can prove that he did.
So he was trying to contest it.
He was trying to contest it. He was trying to pay more.
Oh, he was actually trying to pay more?
Yeah, he said he should have been paying.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, he was actually arguing with the CMS, and they wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't listen to him at all. They just said, no, that's what you're going to pay. End of story.
Why did he want to pay more?
Because that's what he thought he should be paying. He didn't want to get caught out with arrears. He was trying to keep out if he was
rash on that, then make him...
Yeah, that's when it becomes, warrants. So anyway, so I know that he was being fair. He was paying the CMS money. He was paying all the court arrears. Yeah, he would be late sometimes with payments. He couldn't see his kids. He wasn't allowed to see his kids.
Not at all.
Not at all. No.
And this is two different mothers.
Two different mothers, yeah. The other mother, the mother of the oldest son, before Gavin committed suicide, actually went to the police, and there was allegations of child abuse made against Gavin. False. Turned out to be false. There was a police investigation, and the investigating officer, who just happened to be a woman, turned around and said to Gavin at the end of the investigation, it's just two vindictive ex-wives trying to cause you trouble.
Why the two ex-wives
talking to each other? Yeah. So when we finally figured out all figures, I figured out that something had gone wrong somewhere. Gavin had 3 assessment letters, so he'd obviously disputed it first 2 times. The first assessment, disputed it. Second assessment, disputed it. And I believe on that day, he logged on to the CMS portal to see that, again, the CMS had not listened or taken any notice of what he was saying. He didn't burn that money. He didn't own those arrears.
So why weren't they listening to him then?
CMS, it's standard CMS, isn't it? They don't listen to PayPal.
Why don't they do that then?
Well, you have to speak to the CMS on that one. Yeah,
it's a common occurrence.
Yeah. I discovered with the 3 years I've been working on this, I've discovered that the CMS just totally ignore.
So do you think that's an active discrimination against men, or was it just non-resident parents?
It's non-resident parents. Yeah, I started off with the deadbeat dads type looking at it, and actually, it's not. It's not discriminatory. It is paying parents. There are female paying parents who they go after with exactly the same incompetence, whatever it is they do. They go after both. So it's paying parents, not.
It's just a complete discriminatory
against paying
passions. It is paying parents.
Yeah. So I phoned the CMS. I thought, well, I had to phone them anyway to let them know that obviously Gavin had passed. And so I phoned them with all the facts and figures. I got this guy on the phone who was quite helpful to start with. Well, he was quite helpful. And I went through the facts and figures as I had them. And he obviously had Gavin's file up on his screen. Yeah. And I said about the £26,000 additional income. Where does that come from? And he was, I would imagine he was scratching his head from the comments he was making. He couldn't figure it out. He could not explain where this £26,000 additional.
So even though he had the system in front of him,
considering up in front of him, he couldn't figure out where that figure had come from. Wow. So he said, look, I'm going to have to go away and investigate this. And I said, hang on a minute, before you go, I know this because I got the transcripts of I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but I've got the transcripts in the phone conversation. So I said, what about the 15,900, I can't remember what exact was, arrears? how do you explain that?
Yeah.
He was only paying CMS for one child for approximately 3 years. And I can prove that he was making the payments that were required by the CMS.
So I phoned CMS, and I got this guy on the phone, reasonably helpful to start with, and started asking him about the facts and figures on Gavin's case.
Yeah.
First thing I asked him about was the £26,000 additional income. He couldn't explain it. He could not explain where that £26,000 additional income had come from, even though he's got Gavin's files up in front of him. He couldn't say how they had come to that figure.
Wow.
So he said to me, I'll have to go away and investigate this. He was going to hang up, but at that point I said, no, I've got some other stuff to ask you. So we carried on with the conversation.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to it in a minute, but I've got the conversation on, I did a freedom of information request, and I've got transactions of the conversation. So I then talked to him about the arrears, 15,900 and whatever it was, arrears. And again, he couldn't explain where the arrears had come from. I said to him, Gavin had only been paying CMS for approximately 3 years. And how do you run up nearly £16,000 of arrears when I know he was paying? He was paying what the CMS wanted him to pay.
Yeah.
He couldn't explain it. He was like, I cannot see where this has come from. There's something not right here.
Yeah.
So I then said to him, I said, and the other thing is, why was the CMS trying to take money for 2 other children who Gavin was paying through a private arrangement, i.e. a court order?
Yeah.
And again, he's like, oh, I don't know. There's a court order. I said, yeah, there's a court order. He says, oh, I don't know, I can't. And again, he was completely, didn't have any explanations. So he said to me, he said, look, I'm going to have to finish this phone call. We're going to have to go away and investigate this and have a look at this because there's something not right here. And that was it, end the telephone conversation. A few days later, I get a phone call from a Mark Komisky. And he opened the conversation with introduced himself, and he said, all telephone recordings from the CMS, all telephones, conversations with the CMS are recorded. This telephone conversation is not being recorded.
Wow.
Yeah, at this point, God, if only I'd known, I would have started recording the telephone conversation.
Wow. So they didn't want any kind of responsibility.
This guy, I mean, I've got to take my hat off to him. He's put himself in a really precarious situation with the CMS. Because, yeah, he came to me on a completely unrecorded telephone conversation.
Yeah. Off the books.
Yeah, off the books. And I can't remember the exact wording of this conversation because obviously there's no recording of it. But it ended up with him basically saying to me, you make a statement and I will comment on it.
Right.
Which is, I can't remember how we got exactly to that point in the conversation.
So he knew.
He knew, yeah. So I said to him, I believe that the £26,000 additional income is fictitious. It's a fictitious figure.
Yeah.
And his answer, and it's this ingrained in my brain, this answer. Listen to my tone of my voice. I'm not going to disagree with you.
Wow.
So I said to him again, I said, so the £26,000 additional income is fictitious, doesn't exist. Listen to my voice. I'm not going to disagree with you.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I went on to the arrears. I said, I believe that the nearly £16,000 arrears is another fictitious figure. And he said, listen to my voice. I'm not going to disagree with you.
And what was he, just a normal worker?
He was a team leader.
Right,
He was the team leader that was dealing with Gavin's case.
Right.
So I'm like, this is bizarre. So I went, well, the CMS, I says, I believe the CMS shouldn't have been involved in Gavin's case with the two youngest children, because there was a private arrangement, court order in place. And I got the same response. Yeah, he didn't disagree with me. So basically he was confirming that all the things that I suspected were correct. The conversation went on a bit longer. He advised me to get some legal advice. He advised me to speak to my MP. He said, you need to chase this up. You need to follow this up. And he actually said, we need to get some justice for Gavin on this case.
Yeah.
That was his words.
Yeah.
And then he says, right, he says, now I'm going to hang up and I'm going to phone you back in about 5-10 minutes, which he did. So he phoned me back 5-10 minutes later, and you get the normal, this telephone conversation is recorded, blah, 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 blah. And he says, right, he says, you know, ask me who I was, as if the other conversation hadn't actually happened.
Right.
So we started from scratch again. But this time, he asked me if I was administrator or executor of Gavin's estate. Well, Gavin died intestate, which means there's no will. So there's nobody, the estate effectively goes to probate. There's nobody in charge of it. So I said, well, no, you know, it's early days. He's only been gone a matter of weeks. We hadn't even buried him by this point.
So what happens to all that information then that should be able to be accessed by somebody?
No. He says, well, I'm sorry, but we can't talk to you. We can't tell you anything. I said, well, and the conversation went on. It went on for quite a while, but basically the gist was they couldn't give me any information. They couldn't discuss anything about Gavin's case. Nothing at all. What
about his wife?
No.
Why couldn't she have access to that information?
It's acrimonious. As well as Gavin not being able to see the kids, I'm not allowed to see the kids either.
Right.
So,
yeah. So have you not seen them?
No, I've just made contact with the eldest. I'll come on to that later on if you want. So yeah, the wives weren't an option, and I kind of suspect they don't want me to find out what went on, because having 3 years trying to work out exactly what happened, what went wrong, etc., etc., etc. The financial investigation was instigated by one of the ex-wives. So one of the ex-wives will have gone to the CMS and instigated a financial investigation into Gavin.
So this is after he died?
No, before
he died.
So while he was paying his CMS payments,
right,
one of the wives went to the CMS thinking that Gavin was earning more than he was,
right,
and instigated a financial investigation.
So she could get some more money.
So she would get more money effectively, which is what the CMS, they did the financial investigation.
And that's a statutory thing that they do, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, that is standard. They won't question the paying parents' income, etc., unless one of the resident parents goes to the CMS and says, I believe this guy is earning more than he's telling you.
And they only listen to the resident parent.
They only
listen to the non-resident parent. What about information that they present? What about
it gets ignored?
They just completely and totally ignore it.
Yeah. I found out that anything that a paying parent tells the CMS will go to the resident parent and ask them to confirm it.
But how would they know?
Are they going to?
It's completely divisive, isn't it?
Yeah. It has to be confirmed by the resident parent.
Because by all accounts, most people are separated. They don't know each other's accounts. They wouldn't know necessarily what a person is earning or what they've got in their bank account or anything like that. Because that's the nature of
being separated, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so one of them instigated the financial investigation, which was the catalyst that led to Gavin taking his own life. The other thing I found out, strangely, because I know the CMS handbook quite well by now, is that if there's a court order in place for child maintenance, that court order is hard and fast for the first 12 months. The CMS cannot question that court order for the first 12 months. So they have to abide by the court order.
Yeah.
At the 12-month point, the resident parent, again, can go to the CMS and ask for a review of the court order.
Why? Why can I do that?
That's what's in the CMS handbook. You know, that court order has been set by a judge, the law. That is the law of the lands. But the resident parent at a 12-month point can question that, go to the CMS, and the CMS, without any judicial authority, can overturn that court order.
Wow.
So what I believe happened was that the paying parent, the resident parent, must have gone to the CMS. I can't prove this because the CMS won't give me the files at the moment. And tried to overturn the court order, thinking she'd get more money again. But here's the ironic bit again.
It just seems vindictive, doesn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. Here's the ironic bit again. So I now believe that the CMS were not actually aware there was a court order in place, or weren't fully aware that there was a court order in place, because at the time that they did their initial assessment, the court order was less than 12 months old. So they shouldn't have been looking at it in the first place. But I believe they were doing an assessment without taking into account that Gavin was already paying through a court order. So they were assessing him as what he needed to pay through the CMS. So effectively, court order wasn't there.
Yeah.
The CMS letters that we had didn't take into account that Gavin was already paying by court order. They were trying to get him to pay through the CMS for all 3 children, which ironically meant that he would have been paying less for the 2 children that he was paying for. The highest, there was 3 figures they assessed for those 2 children. I think the highest was about £1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Gavin was paying £269 a week.
Wow.
Which comes in at, I can't remember, I think it's 1,200 and something a month, I think it is, because it's obviously 30 days as opposed to 4 weeks sort of thing. I'm really sure now that he would have been paying out the £2,269 a month had he actually investigated what was going on or been able to access what was going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know on that one again. That's
lots of unanswered questions.
That's what I've been trying for the last 3 years. I've been trying to get answers to the questions.
So in terms of like, it sounds like Gavin felt quite isolated in this situation.
Yeah, well, he had nowhere to turn to. That's the trouble with the CMS. You've got nowhere to turn to. I've since discovered there's like a complaint system that you can go to.
Yeah.
And that's a complete waste of time. It is basically the CMS investigating the CMS.
Yeah.
And they weren't listening to him. He will have told them. He will have shown them his tax return, his income. And
also that they're connected to the HMRC anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, they talk to the HMRC.
So
that's where they get their figures from.
From what I understand is that they do have up-to-date information about income.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, they're acting like they don't have that information, and that the non-resident parent has to provide that information.
Yeah.
So it's a counterproductive.
Oh, it's
process.
It's a crazy system. It is absolutely. I'm working with people. Some people think it's deliberate, and I would hope that it isn't deliberate, because if it is, then it's murder. They're driving people, so they're killing people.
I think that is probably the clearest avenue. The correlation between. So how many deaths per year is it?
There's over 1,000 suicides a year can be attributed to the CMS.
And that's male and female.
Male and female, yeah. There's if you are a male paying parent and you have arrears with the CMS, you are 14 times more likely to take your own life than the average person as a male.
Wow.
As a female, that figure...
It's quite sobering, isn't it?
Yeah, as a female, that figure is higher.
Higher?
Yeah. If you're a female paying parent, I can't remember what the figure is now off the top of my head. But if you're a female paying parent,
yeah,
you are even more likely to take your own life.
Really?
Yeah. And there's,
shocking.
Yeah, there's anybody wants to look at it, there's a report out by a guy called Brian Hudson.
Yes, I've heard of him. Yep.
Yeah, and I think you've actually done a thing on him.
Yeah, I did a video on him because
Yeah,
the
so
research
it's
was absolutely incredible.
Yeah. So the research is out there, the facts are out there, facts and figures are out there.
I mean, really, it's a national scandal, isn't it?
Oh yeah, massive.
What he's discovered should be, it should just have everybody's attention onto it.
Yeah, it's crazy. The CMS is protected. There's things that I've uncovered that I find absolutely scary, horrendous. So the CMS operatives are covered by the Official Secrets Act.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they come under the Official Secrets Act.
How? The Official Secrets Act? What?
The Official Secrets Act is to do with national security.
Yeah.
So how does the CMS come
Why
under
is that national security then?
I don't know. It stops them whistleblowing.
It's
scary. It's scary.
It just screams corruption, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's nobody will talk about this. No MP will take it on. My MP has stopped answering my emails now. He refuses to even speak to me.
Wow.
Why? There was a guy, one of the guys I'm working with was speaking to David Lammy about it.
Yeah.
And David Lammy actually said to this guy, no MP will take on the CMS because it's political suicide.
I mean, that's a euphemism, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a guy, what was his name? I can't remember what his name was. An MP, famous MP, he went on to, his wife took herself off into the woods and hung herself. It's a couple of years ago now. And he went on to Woman's Hour.
Yeah.
And he was, he's starting this charity to try and prevent future suicides. Mm. And I thought...
Of women?
Oh, no, just future suicides, full stop.
Right.
Future suicides. He wanted to stop or help with preventing future suicides. And I was like, yeah, I've got somebody I can work with here.
Yeah.
So I contacted him. Nothing. He never, ever got back to me. Yeah, nothing. I've contacted all sorts of MPs and people, and you get various responses. I'm a veteran. I did 29 years in the Air Force. Gavin was a veteran. He did 15 years in the Air Force.
Wow.
The Parliament has a veterans representative in Parliament.
Wow.
I thought, well, there you go. This guy worked for me. He's my representative in Parliament.
Yeah.
Johnny Mercer is his name. Doesn't want to know.
What do you think's going on there?
It is, nobody wants to do anything about it. I mean, it's a profit-making organisation.
Yeah.
Massive profit-making organisation. Probably most of the people that are watching this are aware, but for those of you who aren't aware, the CMS, when the CMS gets involved between a resident parent and a paying parent, the CMS will do their best to get the paying parent onto what's called collect and pay.
Did you explain that? What's collect and pay?
Yeah, collect and pay. So it basically, the resident parent has to kick up a stink saying that the paying parent isn't paying, and the CMS puts the paying parent on collect and pay, what they call collect and pay. So the CMS puts a deduction of earnings order on the workplace of the paying parent, and they take the money from his wages before he even gets to see it.
And that's like a tax, really, then, isn't
Well,
it?
yeah, but it gets better.
Right.
The CMS charges the resident parent 20%
Wow.
on top of what he's paying to do that.
So it clearly is a profitable business
Yeah.
then.
And they then take another 4% from the resident parent. So for every transaction that they make 24% profits.
Wow.
So
staggering.
yeah, I mean, if the
So it's in their favour to get them to pay
to get them onto
paying direct. What's it called? Paid direct.
Collect and pay.
Collect and pay. It's in their favour.
It's in their favour to get them on there. So there was I saw a screenshot of some figures. 10 years ago, the profits from collect and pay were like 12 grand, something like that. Last year, 21, 22, they made 48 million on collect and pay.
Pure profit.
Pure profit. Nobody knows where that money goes.
Yeah.
You can't find out where that money goes.
Right.
And it's just absolutely horrendous. I mean, we talk about, I said about, I like to think that it's not intentional fraud. But when you go back through, and these what I'm saying here is it's all out there. You can, if you dig deep enough, you can find it all. So back when it was the CSA, before it became the CMS.
It's about 10, 12 years ago.
10, 12 years ago, yeah. There is, obviously the CMS or the CSA, people have looked into them. They're accountable to the government, supposedly. There is a guy on record saying that the CSA actually increased the incomes of paying parents by 300%. For no reason at all. They just increased the income, the annual income, by 300%.
And what was the purpose of that?
The idea behind it was to try and scare the paying parent into paying their CMS payments.
Right.
But they increased hundreds and hundreds of people's incomes by 300%. Those figures went onto the CMS debt figures.
Yeah.
They are still on there. Those figures are still on there, even though everybody knows that they were fraudulent figures deliberately put there to try and scare paying parents into paying. The CMS is still quoting that debt that never ever existed in their figures.
How and why?
Well, there you go. The CMS is it's audited every year. It's a government agency and it deals with finances. It's audited every year by a body called the National Audit Office.
Yeah. National
Audit Office have not signed the CMS books off in years. They will not sign the CMS books off.
So how are they getting away with that? How are they able to do that without any kind of accountability at all?
No, nobody knows.
Nobody knows, and nobody can talk about it.
That report goes to
investigate it.
No, nobody looks into it. That report goes to the top guy, the Chancellor, basically.
Yeah.
It goes to his office. It's not signed off. It's not signed off because it's actually worded in there. The CMS, they cannot work out the CMS figures. There is fraudulent figures. There is incorrect calculations. There is monies they cannot explain. And they get away with it year after year after year. Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous. It's the stuff that I could talk for hours and hours on the stuff.
I'm more than happy for you to do so. What's been happening in your life recently then, in relation to all this? What's been going on for you?
It's quite. There's a lot of different things. I've got fingers in different pies. The first thing I did was try and get to be administrator of Gavin's estate, because the CMS. If I get the administrator of Gavin's estate, the CMS has to give me Gavin's files. They have to give me all the information on Gavin, because I'm Gavin's legal representative now.
Of course, yeah.
So I started off trying to get the role of administrator. It's a bit of an awkward one because there's a hierarchy. So the first people to be able to go for it are the next of kin, the direct next of kin, which would be Gavin's children.
Yeah.
Of course, they're all minors, so they can't do it.
Right.
Ironically, that then falls to the mothers,
And
and they didn't want to do it. They won't do it. They're not interested in doing it. I mean, it's funny really, because
even now,
yeah. I'll cover that in a minute. But there's a pension. Gavin's got a military pension,
yeah,
which should be paying out to well, it should have been paying out to all three of his children, but because one's now 19, it would still be paying out to two children till they were 18. So it's a significant amount of money it's going to be paying out.
Right.
Nobody's done anything about it. It's still sat there. So anyway, I went for the role of administrator. Basically, I wanted to sort that out, and I wanted the CMS to give me the files. And I couldn't do it because obviously it's down to the mothers to do it. So they didn't do it. I wrote to them. They didn't do it. And it went on and on and on. And I eventually, this is when my MP was still talking to me. I wrote to him about it. He wrote to, I believe it was the Attorney General. The Attorney General come back to me and said there's a process called clearing off. So if, as a next of kin down the hierarchy, nobody above you is applying for the role of administrator, you can apply to clear them off and get the role of administrator. So I went down that road. Contacted the probate office. There's all sorts of stuff you have to do. You have to do inheritance tax forms, fill in all forms, this, that, and the other. Eventually got to, I could apply for the role of administrator. So working with the probate office, we got all the way to the point where the telephone conversation was, yes, we've got the letters of administration all ready to be signed. You'll have them in a week. And I'm like, yes, I've got them. 7 days later, nothing. Phone the probate office. Yeah, we can't give you them. We need permission from the two mothers of the minors. So I'm like, well, what do I do? Well, you'll have to write to them and ask for their permission. So I wrote to both of them. One of them completely ignored me, and the other one came back and said she wouldn't give me permission to apply for the role of administrator.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So
how long ago was this, by the way?
This will be probably getting on for 2 years, 18 months ago. Yeah. So that was the end of it. There's nowhere else I could go with that. So as far as I was aware, that was then the end of the story. Yeah. However, a few months ago, my oldest grandson reached out and contacted me.
That's great.
Him and his mother have gone their separate ways.
Right. How old is he now?
He's 19 now.
19 years old.
He told me that basically when he went to live with his mother, he made the decision to go with his mother. His mother told him that he was to break off all contact with Gavin's family, otherwise she wouldn't let him live with her.
Right.
So he had no choice, basically, as a,
yeah,
what would he have been, 14, 15-year-old, something like that. He had no choice, and he had to go with what his mother said. I had a conversation with the eldest grandson, and he's allowed to apply for the role of administrator. He is now the next of kin, who is now.
And you've got a good relationship with him.
Yeah, we're building a relationship.
That's good.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard.
Right.
Because there's a lot of bad feeling gone on. Him making the decision to go and live with his mum, and the things that happened after that, all accumulated in basically what happened, I think.
Is he wrestling with a lot of questions?
Yeah, I should imagine he's got a lot. He's got a lot of stuff he's going to have to sort out in his life, sort of thing. So, but he can apply for the role of administrator.
Is he going to do that?
Yeah, he's done it. He's applied for it, and he can appoint me as because there's minors still involved. There has to be two people.
Yeah.
So we went back to the probate office. What do we do now? And they're like, yeah, okay, you still need, you've got two options. You either offer the ex-wife, the mother of the two minors, the role of administrator, and she can turn it down, or accept it, and you accept her as an administrator,
Mm.
or she renounces the role of administrator, her right to the role of
So
administrator.
she has right to
Yeah, she could still become an administrator of the estate.
right.
Because her minors are involved, she
Yeah.
has the right to become that administrator, which doesn't matter to me. I don't mind. I'm quite happy for her to be administrator of the estate. You know, they're my grandsons. At the end of the day, they're still my
Of
grandsons.
course, yeah.
And I've got their best interests at heart.
Yeah. You just want to get access to that information.
I want the access
Because
from
then what
CMS.
will you do when you've got that information? What will you do with it?
I don't really want to say on here just yet,
Okay.
because I don't want to play my cards too early.
Absolutely.
But one way or another, I will force the CMS to release Gavin's files. Whether they've still got those files or not, I don't know.
What happens if they've deleted them?
Well, that's the thing. The CMS are one of the only, well, they're the only body in this country that can delete financial files at 2 years. Every other body in this country has to keep financial files for 7 years.
Yeah.
CMS can delete them at 2 years. So at the 2-year point, I wrote to, I believe it was Arlene Sugden at the time, Arlene Sugden and Debman Scott, Boris Johnson. Everybody, I wrote to everybody saying that you cannot delete these files as they will be required in a future court case.
Mm.
That gives me if they've deleted them, I believe that's perjury.
Yeah.
Because I have said that they will be required in a court case.
Yeah. You preempted it.
Yeah, because I knew what was going to happen, that they'll delete them at the 2-year point. So if I get the role of administrator, they have to give me those files one way or another. There's ways and means which I'm not going to go into. It's
yeah, you don't have to talk about anything that you don't want to.
And the other thing is the team leader that I spoke to said that the CMS were going to instigate an internal investigation into Gavin's case.
Right.
So there will be a report on that internal investigation. So even if they've deleted the files, that report should still be available.
They would have needed that information to do that, wouldn't they?
Yes, yeah, the information will be in that report.
So, so what sort of timescale are we looking at there?
Timescale for
this report, then?
Oh, I don't know when they finished it. They wouldn't tell me. That was another conversation with the CMS. So we'll get around to the coroners in a minute and the inquests. But when it was coming up to the inquest, I was going to try and get that report into the inquest. Yeah. So I phoned up the CMS, and all I wanted was, have you finished the report? And they wouldn't even tell me if they'd finished the report. They wouldn't even talk to me about the report, whether it was finished, whether it was still ongoing. They wouldn't say, yes, we finished the report, or no, we haven't finished the report. That's what they're like. That's what you're dealing with. So, yeah, role of administrator. So we wrote to the mother of the 2 minors and offered her the role of administrator. We did this all through the probate office. So the probate office has copies of all the correspondence.
Backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, she said she didn't want to be an administrator, and because she didn't want to be an administrator, she could not refuse us the position of administrators. It just goes ahead. It just, if you don't want it, then you're basically renouncing your role as an administrator.
And then it passes on to...
And it passes on to...
So it's like a right of refusal, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. So we are still talking to the probate office. I've been talking to the probate office now for probably 6 weeks.
Wow.
I did have a time scale because Gavin, basically you got 3 years. When Gavin died, I had 3 years to file a court case against what I perceived to be guilty parties. And obviously that 3 years passed in July this year. and Lewis and myself were applying for the role of administrator prior to that, which meant that we could go ahead and do what we were going to do if we had the letters of administration. So I was on the probate office every day for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I knew them by first names. They'd pick the phone up and I'd go, oh, it's you again. But they dragged their heels, and that time scale's passed. I have spoken to a legal advisor about that time scale, and we think we can get around that 3-year point. We think there's a way around it. But I'm still waiting for the probate office. They've come back to me, oh, we need this, oh, we need that. The best one
Just
was
dragging it out.
dragging it out. The best one was the last one. So I get an email from the probate office. Remember, Gavin died intestate, which it's all on record. It's the reason why I'm going through probate. And the email read, we don't appear to have a copy of Gavin's will on record. Can you tell me where it is?
He doesn't have a will, does he?
Exactly. So I sat down and took a few deep breaths, phoned the probate office. And when you get to the probate office, you don't actually speak to the people who are dealing with your case. You speak to, like CMS, you speak to a telephone answering service person.
Yeah.
And I said, I've got this email from you, and it says, you haven't got a will from Gavin. And she says, well, we won't have, because he died intestate. I says, well, why are you sending me an email? And that was a week and a half ago, and I've still heard nothing again. Yeah, they're dragging it out.
How are you and your wife dealing with this? How are you coping with the delays,
That's another story altogether. So
what kind of support do you guys have? Yeah.
I mean, I've got quite a good group of guys working around with me that I'm working with who look out for me. But about, will it be a year ago now? Probably a little bit more than that, 18 months ago. 18 months, a year ago. I can't remember the exact timings. I found that I was, every night, I was waking up in a flight or fight nightmare.
Yeah.
I'd wake up, heart would be pounding, sweating, stressed, really stressed out.
Yeah.
And I became Mr. Angry with everybody.
Yeah.
I was down at my sister's. We get on really well, my sister. Really. And we were sat discussing something, and all of a sudden this rage started to come over me. I'm like, whoa. And I talked to somebody else about it, and they said, you got PTSD.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah.
It's not just what happened to your family. It's all the confusion, the lies, the deceit, and all of that goes with it, not to make you relive that.
So I ended up, I went to a PTSD specific counsellor.
Yeah.
And we went through all the, procedures, and she says, yeah, you've got PTSD, massively got PTSD. So I had to take a step back for about 3-4 months and went through 3-4 months of counselling for PTSD, which...
Did it help?
Yeah, it was a private company. It wasn't through the NHS. I got recommended through one of the people I was working with, got recommended this private company that does it. And they do it differently to what the NHS does. The NHS won't recognise them, but they have a completely different way of tackling it.
So it was like a CBT type thing?
I'm not sure what it was.
Cognitive behavioural therapy?
Yes.
That kind of thing?
Yeah. So basically, they go through, you have to relive it all. You have to write it all down, what triggered it, what caused it, your feelings, and all this sort of stuff. And it was quite tough, but it was also quite interesting because they go into a lot of the psychology of why and what the brain's doing, why it's left and right, basically side of the brain. Right is fight
Reason
and flight.
and emotion.
Yeah, right is fight and flight, left is like reason and emotion type thing.
And then you feel like these parts of your brain are just overstressed.
Yeah, well, what happened was the left-hand side of the brain are basically shut down. So the right,
because you're having to deal with this constantly,
constant fighting. So the right-hand side of the brain had taken over, and of course everything was a fight. Anything, any little thing that normally you'd go, yeah. The right brain says, fight.
Because your ability to be able to just take a breath,
gone.
Yeah.
It was just fight, straight into fight modes. So yeah,
it's an extraordinary thing, though, isn't it, to go through?
Yeah, I mean the treatment that I went through, the person I went through, it was just amazing. It was just incredible. The stuff that we talked about, understanding why, how, where, triggers, and it's now something that you never get rid of. It's always there.
Yeah,
and it will always be triggered. But now I have the tools that I can deal with it better than I did before.
So what advice would you have for people who have gone through something where they do have PTSD because of the CMS? What advice would you give them?
You've got to seek help, because it'll destroy you. It destroyed my marriage at that point.
Are you still together with your?
Yeah, we're still together at the moment. Yeah.
But it was very difficult.
But it was at that time, yeah. So yeah, it's it destroyed my life, destroyed her, destroyed everybody's life. Basically, I was just a rage machine.
It's extreme.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do develop that, I mean, the dreams. I didn't think about the nightmares at the time. It didn't twig at the time what the nightmares were.
Yeah.
But once it gets explained to you afterwards, that's what's happening. Is while you're sleeping, your brain is still working. And effectively, it's just the right side of your brain that's working all the time. So you're always going to dream fight or flight.
Because there's a huge sense of injustice.
Oh yeah, massive injustice.
And that's the thing that keeps the brain going, isn't it? Because you want, why did this happen? Why nobody did anything about it? And then so you want those kind of answers to that. And that kind of probably perpetuates that.
Yeah, it keeps it going all the time. Yeah. I mean, my last hope really of getting some sort of justice and getting the CMS to actually admit what they'd done, they got it wrong, was the inquest, Gavin's inquest.
And when was that?
That was almost a year after he'd passed. It was in the May.
Yeah.
Nearly a year after he'd passed. So I did a bit of research on inquests and coroners, etc., what they do, what you can do, what their responsibilities are, etc., etc. And in an inquest, one of the coroner's responsibilities is to ensure that the same set of circumstances don't happen again to lead to a future death, be it work-related, CMS-related, whatever. So the coroner can instigate an investigation into the sequence of events that led to that person's death, whatever that reason.
Joining the dots, so to speak.
Yeah. And he can put out what's called a prevention of future deaths order.
And what's that exactly?
So basically, if it's with a company, he will go to the company and he will say, you have got to ensure that this set of circumstances never happens again.
Right.
And that was, for me, that was right. That's what we need. We need a prevention of future deaths order against the CMS.
Yeah.
It's no brainer.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, the CMS has then been told they cannot carry on the way they are.
Yeah.
So we had a pre-inquest hearing, which is basically the family talked to the coroner before the actual inquest.
Right.
And I said to him, you know, I believe it was a CMS. There was other issues as well. Gavin had some issues at work, which I sorted out, basically. We sorted out with his work.
Yeah.
Which was, his work were actually quite good about it. But obviously, I said to the coroner, you know, the CMS is massively responsible in this, and I want a prevention of future deaths order against the CMS. And initially, he said, well, present me all your evidence and we'll see where we go. So I got all the evidence together, sent it all off to him, and then I started getting these. No, we're not interested. We're not going down this road. We're not going to talk about the CMS in the inquest. So, I mean, I got loads and loads of emails between me and the coroner's office, and it was like, it got to the point where the coroner called a second pre-inquest hearing with me, and I did have a lawyer at the time. He wasn't. The trouble was, he wasn't an inquest specialist lawyer. And having seen what happened in the first inquest, basically, if the coroner tells the lawyer to wind his neck in, the lawyer has to wind his neck in. He can't carry on with his road of reasoning. So I thought, well, he can't do that to me. He can't stop me saying what I want to say.
Yeah.
I know what I've done loads of investigation into this. I know what I'm talking about. Get rid of the lawyer, go into the inquest on me. On this.
So you're representing yourself.
So I'm representing myself at that point.
And so what's the advantage of representing yourself?
There's no protocol. There's no between. It's interesting. It was interesting in the first pre-inquest hearing. There's a protocol between the judge and the lawyer. They have to respect each other's. If he says enough, the lawyer has to wind his neck in.
But you're not held by that same
by
accountability.
That protocol.
Protocol, yeah.
So an hour and a half I argued with this coroner. And I said, you know, basically, the CMS got it wrong. I know the CMS got it wrong. I have all the evidence that they got it wrong. Yeah, but it's not the way forward. It's not my job. But it is your job. No, it's not my job. Your job is to stop future deaths happening from the same set of circumstances. No, that's not my job. He tried to tell me that the CMS debt was like a bank loan, and that, you know, people enter into a bank loan and they have to make those payments. And I went back to him and said, yeah, but the bank doesn't change the payments. The bank isn't fraudulent. The bank doesn't get it wrong. The bank can't come back to you and say, oh, you now owe this much money, without proving that you owe that much money.
Because that's fraud.
It's fraud, yeah. And we spent an hour and a half going backwards and forwards with this coroner, and he just point blank refused to take any evidence that I presented to him that the CMS was part and parcel of Gavin's suicide.
So the pressing question is, why was he doing that then?
Now, that's a massive question. I'll come to that in a minute. So it was like, oh, this is just ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. I've got all the evidence. Everything's there. And this coroner will not listen to me. So anyway, I was driving back. I've been down south. We were driving back up north on a Sunday afternoon in the motorhome. I get this phone call from this lawyer. Wants to talk to me, and I'm like, all right. So took the phone call. Luckily, we were in the services. Spent nearly an hour and a half chatting to this lawyer in the services. She was a specialist in inquests, and she specialises in veterans inquests. And she had seen one of the podcasts I'd put out about the coroner, and she said, this is wrong. This is not right. There's something going on here. This just isn't right. We cannot allow this to happen. So the inquest was the following week. So she said, come and see me on Monday. We will put in a request to the coroner to get the inquest postponed, and we'll put our case together and we'll fight this for you, get the CMS involved. We'll get justice done. Yeah. So that's what we did. She put in this, I drove all the way down from Preston at the time to Leicester to meet up with her. We had a meeting. We presented her all the evidence. She said, yeah, this is wrong. This is massively wrong. She said, this isn't right. So she requested postponement of the inquest. Yeah. Coroner refused. Point blank refused. So she says, she'd never known it before. She says, I just can't understand it.
So that's the obstruction of justice, isn't it?
Don't know what you want to call it. So anyway, we went to the inquest with my lawyer, my sister, my wife, Gavin's fiance was there, and sat in the inquest. Coroner opens up the inquest. My lawyer ripped the coroner apart. she says, you cannot go ahead with this. You cannot go ahead with an inquest. You know, she gave him all these precedents. She gave him everything. And you know, when you're watching somebody who's under pressure and they shuffle paperwork on his desk, that's what he was doing. He was shuffling paperwork on his desk. Yeah, he shuffled paperwork on his desk. And she said, you've got to postpone this inquest. He refused, point blank refused. So my lawyer said, right, we're walking out. We're not going to be party to this. This isn't justice. This isn't right. So Gavin's family got up and walked out of the inquest. The lawyer suspected or hoped that at that point, the coroner would adjourn the inquest. Nope, he carried on.
Why? Carried
on. So there's some facts in Gavin's life that you need to understand. Yeah. He had 3 children. When he met his fiancée, as you do in any start-off relationship, he didn't tell her about all the kids. He only told her about 2 of the kids. The 3rd kid, I don't know why, don't understand his reasoning. He didn't tell her about the 3rd kid. On the day that Gavin took his own life, she actually found out about the 3rd kid through a CMS letter.
Right.
She obviously wasn't happy, but she didn't tell Gavin that she knew.
Oh.
No. Until she was waiting for him to get home. She was going to have it out with him when he got home.
Right.
He didn't know that she knew.
Oh.
And she will stand up in court and say that. Gavin never knew that she found out about the 3rd kid.
Wow.
So the coroner went through his farce of an inquest, and he decided on his assumptions, he has no evidence to back this up at all, that Gavin took his own life because he knew that his girlfriend had found out about the 3rd kid. He has no evidence to back that up at all. And his girlfriend disputes it. So anyway, we tried to get I can't remember what it's called now. Tried to get the inquest reheard with this new lawyer that I got. She was good. She was shit hot. So she said, right, what we'll do this process, but you have to do it within 6 weeks. Cost 18 grand. Do you want to go ahead with it? And I'm like, yeah, definitely. We can prove that those findings are incorrect. That coroner basically made assumptions and based his findings on his assumptions. So she spoke to what do you call them, bigwigs in the Lawyers Society, counsellor, Queen's counsellor. And the Queen's counsel said, yeah, you've got grounds to do it, but the coroner can change 2 or 3 words in his findings and you'll end up in the same place as you are now. And that's the end of it. She said she wasn't prepared to waste my money, 18 grand. I didn't have 18 grand. She says, I'm not prepared to waste 18 grand. We'll try a different way. We'll see what we can do a different way. So we had to let it go. And that still stands.
How long ago was that?
Must be getting on for 2 years. Yeah, it might be. Wasn't the Gavin thing on? Yeah, it'd be 2 years ago now.
I mean, this might be a stupid question, but how do you feel about that?
I'd love to meet that coroner in a dark alley and ask him why he did what he did. It
just seems entirely corrupt.
So anyway, we're talking about coroners and why he did it.
Yeah.
So I've been working with somebody else who lost their brother and son, a couple of people, to suicide to the CMS. Now, this guy actually left a note on Facebook saying that he hopes that his suicide will bring changes about in the CMS because the CMS have driven him to basically take his own life. So he's actually named the CMS as the reason he took his own life.
Right.
So the family go to the inquest, a bit like me at the time, naive, you think that the coroner's working in your best interests, etc., etc., etc. So the coroner, at the beginning of the hearing, made sure that the recording device, because all inquests are recorded, was turned off, and said to the family she couldn't involve the CMS and that her hands were tied. And they could not bring CMS into his inquest. And basically the coroner did similar sort of
Could not
thing.
or would not?
Well, there you go. That's the big question. So, yeah, the coroner found it to be stresses of life that caused him to take his own life.
But there's absolutely no evidence for that.
No, it was the CMS. He said it was the CMS. So, yeah, read into that one what you will.
I find that shocking.
Yeah, everybody does. Nobody can believe it.
And it screams of some level of corruption.
Yeah, but no coroners will name the CMS. You
But
go
why?
through. I don't know.
Do you
I was
think
speaking to a reporter the other day.
Yeah.
And we got onto the subject of the Official Secrets Act.
Yeah, that's a quandary, isn't it?
Yeah, and he says, I wonder if the coroners are caught up in the same issue, that they cannot talk about the CMS.
The hands are tied.
The hands are tied. And if you want to talk about corruption,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hands are tied. Why would you say your hands are tied? So if you want to talk about corruption, here you go. Back in 2019, the DWP paid the Citizens Advice Bureau, I think it was 19 million. I think it was 19 million to help them out. Citizens Advice Bureau is a charity. The DWP donated 19 million pounds to them. Part of the clause of donating that money,
they can't talk about CMS.
They cannot give any advice that will bring the DWP, CMS comes under DWP, into disrepute.
I just wish I had the answer to it already. I just wish
there's loads of people out there. Loads of people wish they had the answers. I know guys that have been fighting this for 20 years. And, you know, it is just ludicrous what they get away with time and time again. Everybody knows it's out there. All the MPs, the information is out there. If you go looking for it, the information is out there that the CMS gets their calculations wrong. Time and time and time again, they get the calculations
on
wrong.
Purpose. Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't
They're doing
really
it,
matter.
and there's no accountability, and nobody is going to be doing anything about it.
No. So I was working with somebody, Sally Ann Boris. She runs Split the Difference. I was working with her.
I was going to ask you about that actually.
Yeah, so I've been working with her for a little while, but she's struggling because she can't get the funding to do what we need to do.
Yeah.
So she managed to get a seat at what's called the All-Party Parliamentary Group for the CMS. Now, this is a group of MPs that basically every so often bring the CMS management into Parliament and question them about the way they operate. So the mother of the guy that I just said about, she went to this meeting with Sally Ann.
This was quite recent.
This was quite recent.
Literally within the last couple of weeks.
Months. Months. A couple of months ago. I can't remember the exact timing. But they managed to get to a seat to speak to the APPG MPs. So what they do is the MPs have a get together with all the people that want questions being put to the CMS. You put your questions to the MPs put those questions to the CMS. So Sally Ann and this woman went down and spoke to the MPs about the suicide rates.
Yeah.
Sally Ann's got she's gathered loads of evidence.
Yeah, I've spoken to her. She's very, very knowledgeable about this stuff.
She's got loads of evidence on CMS miscalculations, if you call them miscalculations, fraudulent calculations, whatever you want to call them, they're wrong. And it is criminal. When you actually look at the figures, it's criminal. The CMS isn't allowed to take more than 40% of your income.
I mean, that's a shocking figure anyway.
Yeah, but she has got massive amount of figures. I mean, the other guy that committed suicide, John Boy, their CMS were taking more than 40% of his income. And they've got it in a letter that they were taking more than 40% of the income, breaking their own rules. And there is a massive amount of data out there that Sally Ann has put together where the CMS is taking over 40% of people's incomes, up to 90% of income in one case.
90% of somebody's income.
And that's before you pay tax bills, etc., etc., etc.
And there's no checks and balances to prevent it.
No. I'll come on to no way to question it in a minute. So we're talking about the suicides. So the APPG politicians, I think, were quite disturbed with what they heard. And they took these questions into the APPG CMS committee meeting. And they actually talked about John Boy's case. And they talked vaguely about Gavin's case as well. And there's a new guy just taken over the CMS, Viscount Younger. He was visibly disturbed with what he was being told.
What was he being told?
About the suicides.
Oh, right, yeah.
The rate of suicides, that the CMS was causing suicides.
Up to 1,000 or more.
Up to 1,000 a year, yeah. So Arlene Sugden, who, in my opinion, is just a piece of work.
She's the head of the CMS.
She was, yeah. She's stepped down or been moved aside.
Who's replaced her then?
Oh,
do you know?
Can't remember now. No, I can't remember.
Anyway.
So she poo-pooed the figures. Basically, she poo-pooed the issues. And then they talked about, they said, but they are happening. And so, what do you do about when somebody commits suicide? Or we carry out an internal investigation.
An internal investigation.
Internal investigation. So that's pretty much marking your own homework. And who gets to see this? No one. Nobody outside of the CMS.
They can decide what the outcome of that is.
Yeah. Even if the evidence is there that they've got it wrong, nobody gets to see it outside of the CMS. It's withheld within the CMS. No accountability.
Is there any other agency out there that is as powerful as the CMS?
No.
I've never heard of anything like it in my life.
CMS, they can raid your bank account. They can make you sell your house. They can do everything. So
yeah, they've reached into my account.
Yeah. So up until recently, CMS, if you're not paying, you're disputing the figures, and you're not paying because you shouldn't be paying, the CMS can slap you with what's called a liability order. And once they've slapped you with that liability order, they can force you basically to give up every asset you've got.
Just
pay.
Yeah.
They can. There's been cases where they force people to sell houses. It is
for a debt of about $3,000 or something like that.
Yeah. It's basically the end of the road. Once you get that liability order against you, you're doomed. And
they don't need to take you to court for that anymore, do they?
No, that's what I was just going to talk about. So up until recently, again, it was a few months ago, the liability order had to be signed by a judge. It's a judicial thing. Quite obviously, they're going to ruin you with it. They're going to take everything you've got. And you used to be able to dispute it in court. So if you've got a liability order hearing, it's supposed to be somewhere where you live. The CMS banged them all into one court at a random place around the country. Now, I know a guy he wanted to go to court to dispute his liability order. So he went onto the website, and you can go on the website and look at what hearings are being held in which courts, etc., etc. So he looked up his hearing in court. I can't remember where it was. I think there was something like 20 liability hearings in the same courtroom at the same time with the same judge as his.
Wow, rubber stamp.
Yeah, it's a rubber stamp. Even back in the day, it was a rubber stamp. And even if you go to
It's
court,
a license to destroy people's lives, isn't
Yeah.
it, really?
even if you go to court, so you can go to the court hearing, present all your evidence to the judge to say that these figures and facts and figures are wrong. The judge cannot go to the CMS and ask the CMS to prove that the debt that the CMS claims is owed is correct. The CMS do not have to provide any information to the court as to how they came to that figure that you owe that much money. So how can the judge make a fair judgment? He hasn't seen all the evidence.
I've been to court myself and had to prove, try to defend myself in terms of how much I owed to prevent going on to a liability order. And they had to. The judge did actually say that they had to go back and recalculate. But I don't think that's everybody's case. I think that what you're saying
but he
is,
goes back. They go back and recalculate. But
they're going back to the start. They're going back to like
but they don't have to
2011.
they don't have to present that evidence in court. They just come back and say, we've recalculated, that's the figure. All that evidence,
Just picking it out of the air.
all that evidence, they don't have to provide that evidence. All they provide is the figure at the end. So even in those days, it was a biased system. It was not a fair system.
It just seems like it's a stealth tax.
Yeah.
It's a tax on single parents, single fathers, non-resident fathers, paying parents.
Yeah.
It's a tax on paying parents. Yeah.
So a few months ago, Siobhan Bailey, MP, subsidised by Serco, put in a private member's bill to remove the requirements for a judge to stamp a CMS liability order.
Right.
So the CMS can just issue a liability order and you have no comeback. You have no way of getting out of that liability order.
So what will the effect of that be on people's lives?
CMS, the suicide rates will go through the roof because the CMS will just, I mean, there was one case, I think there was 200 liability orders in one courtroom.
200. It's horrifying.
Yeah. Personally, I believe the suicide rates will go through the roof because the CMS will just issue liability orders left, right, and centre. Why wouldn't they?
But they must know. I mean, they must know the damage and the harm and the hurt.
They don't care.
Why don't they care?
Money. They're making money. They don't care.
Why do you think this is being allowed through people's perception of fathers as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's a massive propaganda of deadbeat dads, and God, I don't know how many. I've been to there's a what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. So there's a body that governs what journalists can put out. I can't remember what it's called now. I should do. I've written to them enough times. But they can dispute. If you see an article...
I know what you mean.
Yeah, if you see an article in the newspaper and you think it's wrong, it's misinformation, you can go to this body, Ipso.
Ipso, that's
Ipso.
it. Yeah.
You can go to Ipso and put your opinion to Ipso and they will look into it, and if it's considered to be wrong, they can make it, the editors withdraw it. I've put hundreds of those in.
How many have you got changed then?
I think we've had a couple where they've had to change what they've said.
Right.
But most of the time it stands. And it's all the biggest one is, their biggest cop out is, if I see a article about somebody else, deadbeat dad, and they quote all these facts and figures, I can go in and say that's complete and utter bullshit. Here's the facts and figures that I can prove that is complete and utter bullshit. Because I'm not the person that's named in that article, they don't have to do anything about it. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
It's very crazy.
yeah. So there's a charity out there called Gingerbread, which has massive amount of power for some reason. And it is basically a resident parents charity. And they just push deadbeat dads. Now, one thing I will say about CMS is,
aren't they part of the CMS?
No, they're an independent charity, but they have just
Or are they? Because I heard something recently that
there is interests
that they are
interests.
somehow intertwined.
Yeah, there are intertwined. Yeah, it's
so that means there's a conflict of interest there.
Oh, really. Massively, yeah. So while we're talking about gingerbread, the APPG committee have what's called a secretariat. Yeah. So that is a group of people who decide who gets to talk to the MPs. In fact, any MP, there's always, we call them gatekeepers now. There is people that your correspondence doesn't go to the MP, it goes to the gatekeepers, secretariat. They read it, they decide whether the MP gets to see it. And I'm pretty sure that especially with Viscount Younger, because I've written to him a few times now, and initially the responses were, you could tell that he wanted to do something about it, and then it changed, and now I don't get responses. So I believe that
somebody said to him,
yeah, I don't believe he gets to see the correspondence that gets sent to him.
Right.
It's stopped by the gatekeepers. So yeah, go back to the APPG committee. So the secretariat is the people who decide who get to talk to the APPG committee. Just after Sally Ann got her voice at the APPG committee meeting,
yeah,
Gingerbread have taken over the secretariat.
No.
Yeah, it's one of the Scottish one-parent family charities. Yeah. So there's Gingerbread and this Scottish one-parent family charity are now the secretariat for the APPG. So they decide who gets to talk to the MPs. And what is said. Since since Gingerbread and this other charity have taken over, Sally Ann's emails fall on deaf ears. She's not heard anything back from them. She was supposed to have a meeting with them.
So there's no right of recourse. There's no ability to be able to question it at all. There's no ability to put a voice in that forum.
No, it's been removed. Sally Ann was supposed to have a meeting with the APPG. She spent 20 minutes waiting for this meeting. She turned up to the meeting 20 minutes before somebody said, oh, no, it's been cancelled. And subsequently cancelled again. And now, again, she doesn't hear anything back. She can email this secretariat and she hears nothing back from them.
Because Sally Ann Burroughs, she's trying to get together money, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So that she can take the CMS to court.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it sounds like that's a lot of money that she needs.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's crazy amount of money. I looked at, looked at reopening Gavin's inquest. And I was in conversation with the Attorney General about it. And I have the option to reopen Gavin's inquest. I can go back to the court system, present my evidence as to why the coroner got his findings wrong, and get another judge to judge on whether the inquest should be heard again. Yeah, it probably costs me around about 35 grand to get it into court.
Wow.
And then when I go to court, it's the same judicial system, obviously, that the coroner is part of. And are they going to go against the coroner? And if I lose the case, the coroner can then sue me for defamation of character. Yeah, and that's basically.
So all the risk is on you.
Yeah, basically that's what
To get something that you believe is justice, and it obviously would be.
Yeah,
they put all the risk on you.
it's on me. Yeah, that was the coroner come back and said, yeah, you can do it. You've got the grounds to do it. But if the hearing goes against you, the coroner will come after you, basically, and you'll be wiped out.
And then that'll be the end of that.
That'll be the end of that. I mean, I'm 65 years old. There's no way I'm ever going to recover from that. It's so yeah. It's. I don't know. I don't know what
Was
the
Gavin
answer is.
was Gavin your only?
Yeah, Gavin was my only son. Yeah, and
I can relate. I've only got one son myself.
yeah. I mean, we were no longer father and son. We were best mates.
Yeah.
We got into a relationship where we were best buddies. We'd go out on the pot together. We'd go on demonstrations together. We used to barbecue. We're both barbecue geniuses. We used to do everything together. We were best buddies.
Yeah.
I didn't just lose a son. I lost my best buddy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. How old was Gavin when he died?
He was 14. We just celebrated his 40th birthday.
40 years of age. I'm 45.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
And this was how many years ago? 5 years?
3 years ago. 3 years. 3 years ago, July.
So it's still very.
It's it's a tough thing, grief.
How's your wife coping with that?
Well, she was his stepmom, so yeah, she's upset. Just as upset as me. He accepted her into the family, and she was family. And yeah, she was devastated by it as everybody else.
It's a huge loss. Huge loss.
But yeah, she's had to go through watching me go through what I've gone through. Yeah, I went to war for this country. I went to war.
Yes.
I put my life on the line for this country.
Yeah, thank you.
And now it treats me this way. All I want is answers. All I want to know is why and how the CMS got it so wrong.
Yeah.
And all I want to do is try and stop the CMS doing to other people what it did to Gavin.
Of course.
But there's just nobody's interested. Nobody cares.
I do.
That's the trouble. We all, us,
and I think there's a huge community out there.
Yeah, there is.
That do.
But they can't get a voice. I've lost count of the amount of reporters I've spoken to. I've spoken to big reporters from The Guardian, The Mail, The Sun.
But they're almost like gatekeepers as well, aren't they?
Yeah, you tell them their story and they're like, oh, it's terrible. We need to get that out there. We need to get it out there. And then they just disappear into the sunset. I mean, the thing is now is Noel's got quite a good platform. Noel's,
yes, he has.
Absolute. What he's done is
he's done a lot of good research as well.
Yeah, I mean, he took Sadiq Khan, didn't he, to
because of the ULEZ.
Because of ULEZ and won.
Yeah,
and that's given him. I mean, he's a Reform Party candidate now. He's made himself because he wants to fight it. The only way you'll fight it is through the political system.
Yeah.
So he's made himself a Reform Party candidate. He's got himself a reputation as he knows what he's talking about.
He does, doesn't he?
And he beat Khan on his ULEZ charges. He beat him hands down. And I think I got a funny feeling that Noel's case will be a catalyst of.
I really hope so, because he obviously he's experienced it himself, hasn't he?
Oh yeah.
He doesn't see his children.
No, he doesn't see his kids.
So he knows the CMS. He knows exactly what they do.
I mean, Noel's speciality has been the National Audit Office.
Yeah.
And the financial side of it.
Yeah.
His speciality of trying to hold them to account has been through the financial side as opposed to the incompetence side. So there's all different people with different angles coming at different angles out.
But I think as that grows and becomes more known, the pressure will mount. Won't it?
Yeah. At some point. I mean, I think Noel's building a platform that I think will be the one that will expose it.
I really hope so.
Yeah, I do.
He's a
deserves it.
very good communicator.
Yeah.
And he really does know his stuff.
But I mean, everybody says to me, well, why isn't anybody doing anything about it? So 1,000 suicides a year over how many years? All of them CMS have got away with. You imagine once we get one case,
it's like a floodgate, isn't it?
Where the CMS are held accountable for somebody's suicide. All those other people that are going to come forward.
People will be losing their lives in terms of, you'd be looking at imprisonment and all kinds of stuff. People would be really held accountable for it.
Once the CMS, once they get the first precedent against the CMS, the floodgates will be, the money, the compensation will be...
Exactly, the compensation will
ruin
be
this country.
Absolutely enormous.
And that's why it can't come out.
And that's why everybody just shut their mouths about it.
That's what I believe anyways. That's why it can't come out, because it will destroy the government at the time. It will destroy the DWP.
Because it's against human rights.
Yeah.
It's fraudulent. There's links in terms of what you could consider to be against slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, about slavery.
I mean, there's one of the guys that I'm working with. He's doing it off his own back. He's put in a declaration of incompatibility.
I've spoken to this guy.
Craig.
Is it Craig?
Craig Bullman.
Oh, Craig Bullman. No, I haven't spoken to him.
Yeah. No, there's a guy, Craig Bullman. He's put in a...
I've heard of him, yeah.
Oh, what's the word? I just said it, haven't I? What's incompatibility?
Incompatibility.
Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of the...
Right, so what he's saying is the people do not have a right to justice, especially with this Siobhan Bailey thing that's going through.
Cool.
So part of the Human Rights Convention,
right to defend yourself,
is a right to defend yourself, is a right to be heard, is a right to say this is wrong.
Yeah.
And it needs to be judged properly, fairly. And the paying parents no longer have that right to go to court and defend themselves. That has been removed. So that is what the
and that's a statute of the Human Rights Act.
Human Rights Act, yeah. So he has gone to court and put in a declaration of incompatibility. Basically, the CMS has removed your right to your human rights. And he's got that going through the court system now.
Wow.
So
if he wins...
That's another one. If he wins, it's going to open a massive can of worms.
And that's it. What court is that? Is that a high court, is that?
Well, he's put it in, I think it goes High Court first. The CMS have tried to strike it out. And he's gone back and said you can't strike it out. So
he's paying for this himself, is he?
He's doing it off his own back, yeah, because he is retired, not working. He can do it without the expense.
So it's like a future payment, maybe.
No, he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to pay for it to go through court.
Oh, okay.
He can put it through court without the expense.
Oh, wow.
Because you have to pay for putting stuff like that through.
Oh, right.
But if he can prove that he can't afford it, which he can't, then he gets to put it through regardless. The CMS.
So what's his name again?
Craig Bullman.
Craig Bullman.
Yeah, he's been fighting the CMS for 20 years.
Wow.
He's the guy.
He's the guy I'd like to speak to as well, I think.
Yeah, I'll give you his number.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I'll give you his number.
I'd love to hear his story as well.
He's the guy that's probably one of the guys that's kept me going the longest. He's given me so much. What he doesn't know about CMS laws, rules, facts and figures isn't worth knowing.
Yeah, well, I suppose you really do. I mean, you maybe more than many need to see justice in this.
Oh, yeah,
and it sounds like he is doing something that really is tangible.
Yeah, he's probably, this is one of the first really tangible things that's been brought against the CMS.
Because what Sally Ann Burris has got is, it sounds very...
It's a class action she's trying to bring. Yeah,
that sounds like it's a different
different
aspect,
angle. Yeah,
but it just needs the finances, and that's the
yeah.
thing where it's falling down.
That's
at the
where it's
moment.
falling down. Is she hasn't got the finances.
Yeah. So there are people coming from a political, from
Yeah.
a legal, from a.
I mean, yeah. There's everybody's coming out, but at the moment they have so much protection, so many people that will.
And they just want to bolster up the laws as well.
Yeah.
Give themselves even more. I think Sally Ann Burris said they got more power than MI5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're massive. It's until I mean when I lost Gavin, I thought we lived in a fair, just society.
Yeah.
And now I believe we live in a banana republic.
It's got worse, isn't it?
Yeah. I would never go to fight for this country again.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, I believed that this was a country that cared about its civilians, that there was a sense of fair play. There was a sense of you do have a right as a civilian, a right to work, a right to family life, a right to defend yourself, a right to be able to purchase and have your own belongings. But it seems like all of those things are slowly being eroded.
Yeah.
And that. So where are we then? Where are we in terms of where's the country going? This country used to set a standard for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's not the country that you grew up in.
It's not the country I grew. It's not the country I fought for.
No.
It's money. This country is ruled by money.
Yeah.
The CMS is a massive money-making organisation.
Yeah.
And it's not just the CMS. It's the whole divorce situation. I touch on some of the people I work with. So you've got Kafkas, you probably know all about Kafkas, etc., etc. You know Vincent McGovern. Vincent McGovern?
I've heard, yeah.
So Vincent McGovern is another guy that he went through Kafkas. He's not CMS related. His is the courts and social services, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So he's got a book out, actually. It's a really, really good read.
What's it called,
The War Against Fathers and Children.
I want to read that.
Oh, it is an amazing.
Is he a social worker then?
No, I don't think he's a social worker. No, he's just a guy that went through the Kafkas system.
Right. Because they really don't care about fathers at all, do they?
And I can tell you a couple of excerpts out of the book. So, what's he called? There's a dog in the book. I can't remember what the dog's called. Ghost, I think, something like that. So he got abused. He got taken to court through Kafkas and everything, and his ex accused him of cruelty to this family dog, etc., etc., etc. And they used his, dog never existed.
Oh wow. Never
existed. He had a social worker working on the case, and she got found out by the police. She actually made up lies about him.
No way.
Yeah, in the social system, she lied about him in her job, and he managed to get it investigated by the police, and they found out that she admitted she'd made up these stories about him.
Oh, goodness
to get him basically removed from the family.
Wow.
And you'll never guess, she still works for social services.
So, yeah.
Anybody who's had dealings with Kafkas or is going through dealings with Kafkas, they need to read Vincent's book. It is just such an eye-opener as to the corruption within this.
Yeah, I've had dealings with them myself, and they really didn't. They really only take one perspective.
Oh yeah.
It's very much. It's very similar to CMS. They just don't care. I mean, it's very hard to say that. You could look at this through a feminist agenda, but as you're saying with CMS, it's got nothing to do with women or men. It's just finance. It's a business.
Finance. You look at the money that Kafkas makes: lawyers, judges, solicitors, social workers.
It's a racket, isn't it? It's a complete racket.
Billions.
They just want to tear families apart. And then
everybody else makes money off of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then mothers just get into bed with the government, and then that's it. They just start getting them.
I mean, I'll go back to with the domestic violence. So I only found this out recently because I found a solicitor's letter to Gavin from his solicitor.
Yeah.
Or was it from his solicitor to Gavin? I can't remember which way around it was, but I found this letter. And the ex-wife had accused Gavin of domestic violence. Now, all she has to do is make that accusation.
And that's it.
And she gets free legal aid.
Yeah.
That's it. She gets that free legal aid.
Such an incentive, isn't there?
Whether it's bound, whether there's any basis to it or not. So in this letter that I've got, this solicitor's letter, Gavin and his ex-wife, they were actually going to counselling. They were having some counselling. I'm not quite sure what for. But Gavin's counsellor was willing to state on record that she had no evidence of domestic violence within the relationship. That was the counsellor that was counselling them both. It's crazy.
They don't need any evidence there.
The allegations of child abuse that were made against Gavin
Wow.
proved unfounded.
Must have been terrible.
Unfounded.
Yeah.
What happens to the mother?
Yeah.
What happens to the person who makes those allegations?
There's
Nothing.
No accountability at
No
all.
accountability.
And there really should be. I think that you know,
if I accuse you, if I slander you,
then
now,
I can come back at you. And
you
I
can come back at me
I
through
can tell you
court.
to call for defamation of character.
Exactly.
But we live in a world where somebody can accuse somebody, a woman can accuse a man, and just by that accusation, that man's life is destroyed, whether it's true or not.
He's guilty. Yeah.
And the outcome of that is that he can have his children removed from him, he can lose his livelihood, he can lose his home, and it doesn't have to be true. So there's something really amiss with the sense of justice, because we call it the secret family court, but in a criminal court you are innocent until proven guilty, but in a family court that seems to be
reversed, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Gavin's. His access to his children was removed,
and there's probably nothing
much
more painful than that in life.
So this question will always bug me. So up until him and his second wife split up, they were having kids. They were starting another family.
Yeah.
They both had sons from previous relationships.
Yeah.
They made a decision to have more children.
Yeah.
And then the day they split up, Gavin is a child abuser and domestic violence, and he is not capable of having access to his children.
That's it.
How does that work? How does that work? How does somebody go from being a father who you want to have kids with to this monster?
I think that's a question for lots of fathers, and I've been through that myself. And it's probably the worst type of mental, emotional abuse that a parent can go through.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, we used to talk to Gavin. I used to talk to him a lot about stuff, and we discussed all that sort of stuff. And it was, I look back now, and I really didn't know what he was going through.
How did he keep it all quiet then?
I don't know.
Because you obviously clearly had a really, really close.
Yeah.
Was he just a very stoic individual then?
Oh yeah, he was. He did it all himself. He was like me. He stood up and people say to me.
Ex-Royal Air Force, did you say?
Yeah.
So both of you very stoic individuals, very strong.
Yeah. People say to me, "How do you do what you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just
you come across to me like an individual that is taking it. You've clearly, you've gone through a lot of trauma, but you seem to be dealing with it very proactively and practically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. People say, how do you do it? I don't know. It's just something I've got to do. I cannot let it go.
Yeah, because there's the other aspect of that is that, anybody that hears your story will see that it's a huge injustice.
Yeah.
And your case is very unique, but there are lots of others behind you who have gone through very similar things.
Uh-huh.
And that just sticks in the craw, doesn't it?
Uh-huh.
And it should do for anybody that hears your story. because we're a country that's supposed to be against that type of thing.
Yeah.
And if you live in a country where as we were talking before, we grew up thinking that this was a fair and just country, and we set a standard.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
It's not the case at all. It's not fair and just. It's especially where paying parents are concerned. There's no fairness, no justice. It's just absolutely.
And I think that's why paying parents have PTSD, mental health issues, because there's no resolution to it.
Yeah.
And it does sound like the CMS use tactical methods in order to keep parents in that state as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an ongoing abuse
thing, isn't it? Yeah.
which is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been through, that maybe not in the same way, but it's the reason why I wanted to come on board this journey, because I can see that it's not just like a personal, persecution of me through the CMS, and of course this is happening to thousands of other people.
Yeah. I mean, when we lost Gavin, Gavin's fiance and myself, we sat down and we discussed what we were going to do, and we basically said, we're not going after any sort of compensation. There's no amount of money in the world will ever replace Gavin.
No.
But we said we don't want anybody else to go through what we went through. It's I just cannot describe what I went through the night I got that phone call. There's just no words. No words. And to know that people are going through it daily is just heartbreaking. And to know that it can be stopped is heartbreaking. And to know that people out there know that it's happening and are doing nothing about it, it's just beyond belief.
Beyond belief.
It's just absolutely beyond belief. It's, I just don't know. How these people sleep at night, I have no idea.
Do you believe in God?
No, I'm an atheist.
You're an atheist?
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm an atheist. I understand why people believe in gods. I understand religion, but for me, it's not for me. It's not my cup of tea. Not
what you've come to.
Not what I've seen. I've been all over the world. I've seen some real shitholes in this world, and I've seen the bad side of religion. I've seen what religion does, and I've seen what it's still doing.
So how does a philosophical question, but how can there be justice without God?
Karma, universe.
Because if there's no God, there can't be any justice.
Yeah, there can. Yeah,
because then we're all a law unto ourselves. I mean, that's an aside, really. But.
Yeah, well, no, there's society. You say God, society. Society is justice. See, I see religion. I see religion as a club. People like to be. We're tribal. We're a tribal race, and we all like to be part of a tribe. Or most of us. Some of us are loners, but most people like to be part of a tribe. So. Religion it's a tribe. You're part of that tribe, and that tribe will be there for you when you need them.
Except when they're not.
Yeah. But I see my religion is probably society. I see society as I'm part of society. I'm part of that club.
Yeah.
And there's people in society who are there for me, and society will sort justice for me. I would say that the people I'm working with are doing more for justice for me than any God could ever do. I'm part of a team, quite an amazing team, I believe, that are trying to get justice within the CMS.
Yeah, praise God.
They're my part. That's my society. That's my tribe.
Yeah.
And they will get me justice.
Yeah.
One way or another, they will get me justice. So
Yeah.
I have nothing against
Was
anybody.
Gavin?
He had similar views to me.
Had a similar view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I've had a few run-ins with religious people. And I've seen the bad side, probably, of religions.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm not really. I try not to be religious.
Yeah.
I have a faith, and that's what my channel is about. Really, it's about reaching out to people who are suffering.
I have faith in society.
Yeah,
I have faith in the universe and society.
yeah,
You know, it's that's my faith. That's where I get my strength from.
yeah.
Whereas other people get their strength from a god.
Yeah.
I get it from society and the universe. I'm a great believer in karma.
So you believe that ultimately this will bite back the people that have been involved in that?
Yeah.
I believe in justice.
Yeah.
I believe that the things that we do in life, we either receive forgiveness for it from God through Christ, or we meet that Maker at the end of our life and account for it.
Yeah, I mean, I probably account for everything at the end of the day, but you know, for me, there isn't a somebody up there who will reach down and give me justice. If I want justice, I have to get that justice one way or another, and society will get me that justice.
Yeah,
that's my understanding of faith.
And I really genuinely hope and pray that you do for Gavin, but not just for Gavin.
It's not just for Gavin anymore.
It's for everybody behind you and in front of you.
Yeah. I mean, it stopped for me. It stopped being about Gavin probably about a year or so ago. It's you know, I'm never going to get the justice I want for Gavin. I'm never going to get the people responsible for what they did to Gavin held to account.
Yeah.
If I can help bring the system down, then that'll be justice enough.
Isn't it?
And
I've got a long way to.
It's about helping everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, it's. I've had a few experiences. I've talked to loads and loads of people, and Craig phoned me one night. He says, "You've got to speak to this guy. You've got to speak to this guy." I says, "Well," he says, "You've got to speak to him. You've got to help him." I says, "All right," and put him on the phone. So I phoned this guy up, and he was going to do what Gavin did. He was at that point in his life,
right?
And it's probably the worst telephone conversation I've ever had in my life, because I had to talk him out of doing what Gavin did.
Yeah.
And I did, to talk him out of it. And he's still fighting the cause. He's one of the big voices in what we're doing.
But you did talk him out.
But I talked him out of it, and he openly admits, if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't be here.
That's huge.
Yeah, but it's tough.
Yeah.
Because where was that person for Gavin? Why wasn't I there for Gavin?
No, did you?
No.
Nobody knew.
No.
Do you blame yourself for that then?
I don't blame myself, no, because he didn't talk to me.
Do you think maybe he didn't want to burden you with it?
I don't know. I'll never know. I'll never know why he didn't talk to me. That's one big burning question, is why didn't he talk to me about it? I think I might know, but I don't really know why he didn't talk to me. But I can't remember where I was going now.
Guy that you spoke to. Talked him out of it.
Talked him out of it.
What was his name?
David Motorset. Was it? No, it wasn't. Who was it? David Mayfield. Oh, I've got so many people. David Mayfield.
So there's more than one person you've helped in that area?
Oh, there's a few people I've spoken to, that have seen what I've done, seen my podcasts, seen what I've said in the past. David Mayfield, I'm sure it's David.
So what's the name of your podcast then?
my podcasts are on. There's a blog site, Justice for Gavin Briggs.
Justice for Gavin Briggs.
Justice for Gavin Briggs. Yeah, when I first started, so I started out on this quest, and I was watching. I can't remember how I was watching it, but I was watching a podcast done by Craig Bullman and a guy called Clive Spencer, and they were talking about CMS, and they had this. He was a fireman. And basically, he was another one. CMS had driven him almost to suicide. And he was talking to Craig and Clive, much like I'm talking to you on a podcast. And I sat and watched it, and it was like, Jesus, that's what Gavin went through. That's what Gavin was. So it ripped me apart. It tore me apart because at the time it was still all fresh.
Yeah.
So I contacted Craig, and Craig said, I told him the story, and he said, we've got to do a podcast with you. I said, I don't know. He says, no, we've got to get this out there.
Yeah.
And that was the first podcast that I did about what happened to Gavin. And then it was all about the initial findings, my initial findings, what he did and how he took his life. And it's quite a harrowing
I imagine
podcast to watch, because I probably shouldn't have done it. I was a mess. But that was the start.
Well, maybe you just felt that you needed to start
something, start getting the story
start doing
out.
Something positive about it.
Yeah. So Craig set up a Gavin's Justice for Gavin Briggs blog, and all the podcasts I've done. I've done a interview with Anne Widdicombe.
Yeah,
she does. She's
a patron saint.
She's a patron saint of Split now. Yeah, it was me basically that put them together.
Right, wow.
Yeah, I've been a catalyst for a lot of things.
Oh, and also I think that you're actually on the website, aren't you? As a a registered individual with the charity.
within the charity. Yeah, I mean, Sally Ann, I think she's kind of, until she gets funding, I don't think she's got any way forward. It's, she's
online at the moment. I know that I'm part of a group where they're trying to strategize on how they can. I think we need to reach people who don't know about this.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it for 3 years, and it's kind of they're doing everything that I've done in the past.
Right.
I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. Can't remember her name now. Somebody else I did an interview with. She was a famous YouTuber, and you reach out, but it goes nowhere. It just reaches a point, and then it just disappears. And I don't see the way forward other than.
I must admit, I mean, since I've been doing this for it's about a year or so ago, I thought I want to be able to help people with this because I don't, I can see that it's destructive, but I didn't know what to do. And then I thought I'm just gonna start. I came across Split the Difference and some research. I thought, I've got to push this out. And the more I've looked into it myself, not as extensively as yourself or Sally Ann or any, I'm just trying to push it out there. I get the impression that there are so many hurdles. There are so many things. I mean,
the doors that have been shut on me are just unbelievable. With everyone, I mean, I've actually spoken to the National Audit Office. I've spoken to the police. I've spoken to the National Fraud, or PHSO. I had a PHSO investigation, Parliamentary Health Service Organisation investigation. They did an investigation and they came back and said, the CMS has done nothing wrong. And you're like, really? But again, it's a government agency. It's a government agency investigating another government agency. It needs to come from
An external source.
An external source. You know, if
With teeth.
with teeth, yeah. If you've got a private company and somebody dies in that private company, an external body comes in and investigates that private company. The CMS, they investigate themselves. You need, I mean, there's a George. We've got an MP who's put in a request for a public inquiry. There needs to be a public inquiry into the CMS.
Yeah.
Into how they're operating, how they're getting away with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And there needs to be
as a public health issue.
Yeah. They're killing people.
Yeah.
You know, whichever way you want to put it, the CMS are killing people. They're incompetent. They're useless.
Is it incompetence though?
Who knows?
Because incompetence, you can say, well, if it's incompetence, then it's to do with people not doing their job properly. But they know they're killing people.
Yeah.
So that's not incompetence. There's something else. There's something worse, something more sinister and more diabolical at its core.
Oh, Eileen Sugden, when she was in position, she knew that people were dying because of the CMS.
So how can she sleep at night?
And then nobody does anything about it. You know, they do an internal investigation. And you're still killing people. And you do another internal investigation and you're still killing people.
In any other sphere, that would be...
They'd be closed down, they'd be ripped apart.
Absolutely.
You know, even their accounting, any other sphere, they'd be ripped apart. You know, how can you have a government body that they can't even balance their books every year because of fraudulent activity?
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. So I shall carry on. So I think Noel's got some stuff hopefully lined up where we're going to expose.
I'm very interested and excited about that.
Yeah.
Because I think that he's got legs there.
Yeah.
And that's important.
I think it's if society knew what was happening, then people would have to start doing something about it.
Do you think that there is, because I thought that maybe society is unknowingly discriminatory against fathers?
Yeah, because all they're fed is deadbeat dads. It's not society's fault that they don't know what's going on.
It's the media,
It's the media,
government.
DWP, gingerbread likes the gingerbread. They're all pushing the deadbeat dads angle. You never ever see anybody pushing the suicides, the people who suffer at the hands of the CMS.
Yeah.
You know, the cases, Craig's got loads of cases where CMS, he's overturned court action time and time again. Nobody ever mentions that. Nobody comments on that. Press aren't interested. They don't care.
It's almost like it's okay if men die. It's almost like
it's not just men, is it? It's
as you say, it's women as well. It's not a gendered issue within the CMS.
That's the thing. You're falling into the press
agenda. I think I started from that point of view.
Yeah,
I thought that this is just discriminatory against fathers, but
it's not,
as you look into it and the way that the CMS operate, it is just about money. Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the CMS I'm now going to argue for resident parents. I'm going to put an argument for resident parents because I've dealt with a few resident parents as well in my travels with the CMS. And the CMS treats resident parents with the same disrespect, disregard, incompetence, fraudulent activity, whatever you want to call it, as it does paying parents. I know of countless cases where there is a resident parent who gets no money from the paying parent because the paying parent dodges paying child maintenance.
Wow.
And there is loads of cases. But does the CMS do anything about it? No. Because it's too difficult, too hard. No money to be made out of it. If that paying parent, or should be paying parent, is clever enough and has enough money, they can fool the CMS, get around all the CMS and not pay a penny for their child. I know of a mother brought up a kid from, I can't remember how young, but fairly sort of infant to 18 years. Didn't get a penny out of the father. CMS do anything about it? Not interested.
So they don't go after fathers who don't pay.
No, and actually, Gavin fell foul of both sides of the CMS. So Gavin, for 10 years, was a resident parent. So he had his eldest son for 10 years. He was a single parent for the first few, and then remarried.
So he would have been receiving money.
Never received a penny.
And that can make you say, oh, it's a gender thing.
But no, it's not. It's just the CMS couldn't be asked going after what was then should have been the paying parent for the money. He never received a penny in child maintenance in all the 10 years that he brought his son up.
Did he try to get?
Oh yeah, he tried. He went to the CMS and they're like, no, you earn too much money. We can't be asked to do anything about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the CMS, it is completely and utterly useless. It lets down as many resident parents as it does paying parents. It's not even a biased against paying parents useless company. It is a completely useless country because across the board.
If that was the case, then you'd think it could be corrected, or that there could be some form of excuses for it. But it's not. It's a rogue agency.
It's a rogue agency. Yeah, it's useless. It's completely incompetent at what it does.
It doesn't care about children. No. It doesn't care about mothers. It doesn't care about fathers. It's a profit-making agency. Yeah. And no one knows where that profit goes.
No, you can't find out where the money goes to. I know Noel's tried a few times, but they can't. He can't find out where it all goes.
Yeah.
So, as I said, I can talk for hours about.
Oh no, it's fantastic. It's I really appreciate you coming here and taking the time. And
pleasure. Thank you for listening.
It must be really gut wrenching to talk about this stuff. And my thoughts were to really respect the story, the narrative, what your experience was, and so that other people can see what you've gone through and see how terrible it is, and see how this is a public health issue. This is not just you, not just Gavin. It's so many other people,
thousands of people,
and men, I think, are just taught to just deal with it as well.
Yeah. I
think maybe that might be where the CMS has got in there.
Yeah. We tend to just keep quiet and get on and
don't say anything, just deal with it, and then just crack on.
Yeah. Oh, there's loads of fathers out there. Fathers, I've just said it then. There's loads of paying parents.
Yeah, I think it's something like 90% are fathers and 10% are women.
Yeah, it's about that, something like that.
Yeah.
But people just crack on, don't they? And because there's nowhere they can go, they don't have any choice. They just have to crack on. Where are you going to go? There's nowhere to go. MPs won't listen to you. Citizens Advice Bureau, as we've discovered, is not allowed to give advice against the DWP, bring it into disrepute.
Which means that it's actually another extended arm
of the
DWP.
And if you think the Citizens Advice Bureau, all these people, all these paying parents, they're on the breadline already. They're already probably in poverty.
Yeah.
They've got nowhere to go other than the Citizens Advice Bureau, and they believe the Citizens Advice Bureau will give them the best advice going. We now know that no, they don't.
How many fathers are living in their cars?
Oh, yeah. It's what the answer is. Who knows?
Yeah.
That's the trouble. Until somebody with some teeth does something about this, it's just going to carry
I
on.
want to end this with a positive, because it is bleak. It is terrible. But are there any positives that you can share?
One day it will get exposed. One day
It will happen.
it
Won't
will
it?
happen. Yeah, it can't carry on the way it is. It just, I don't know. I don't know how long it'll take or how it will happen. But somehow one day
I get the
will be
impression.
exposed.
I get the impression that pressure is building.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Real pressure.
Real pressure. Yeah. I mean, if Noel gets his way, then hopefully we will get on national. We'll actually get one of the national news agencies on board, mainstream media on board,
Break the story.
and break the story. Yeah. And the thing is, once it breaks, everybody else will jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's being that.
And I think Noel, he seems to be the public figure that could do it.
Yes, yeah, he's made himself that public figure.
I think he really is it. Yeah. And I've
there's
seen a
lots of
few
people
interviews.
working in the background.
Yeah. I'm excited about that because I just think that he's drilled down into it.
Yeah,
he knows it.
Yeah,
and
he's done.
And he's on the side of the people.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. He's done a lot of research and work into what he's doing. I know he's done courses on media and speaking, public speaking, and all that sort of stuff. So he's put a lot of time and effort into getting where he's got.
Yeah, good on him.
And
so we should back that. We should back that guy.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Everybody get behind him. He's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, his stuff's all going viral. It's funny.
Was it 70? What that last interview you did about 4 or 5 days ago?
Yeah,
60, 70,000 views.
I think it's more than that.
And counting. Was it in the hundreds?
I think it's up to the hundreds.
Oh,
now.
that's even better. Even better.
James English put a tweet or whatever it is, Twitter tweet. I don't know whatever it is. He put a clip out of Noel talking about Gavin's suicide.
Oh wow!
And spookily enough, that popped up on my face. Somebody else posted it, and it's popped up on my Facebook today, and that's gone viral as well.
Has it really?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
It was the same just after he did the interview.
Oh, literally within the last few days.
Yeah. So yeah, it popped up on my Facebook today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The clip. There's a clip of Noel talking about Gavin's suicide. Yeah. It's James English is he tweeted it. So that's gone viral as well. So yeah,
the word's getting out there.
Yeah, it's taken.
And the more we push, and the more we keep sharing the stories like yourself, getting on different platforms, we'll get this out as quickly as we possibly can, and hopefully this will be shared and copied and pushed out even further as well. And keep applying the pressure.
Keep putting it out there because we're fighting a propaganda machine that's the deadbeat dads and gingerbread agenda, and they've got the platforms. We don't have those platforms at the moment.
So that's why we need Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and all of those things. As long as we've got them, before it all becomes China. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Ian, thank you very much for your time.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much.
It's okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say before?
No, I think we've covered everything. I think.
Okay.